One of the most important continuums on in healthy culture is the degree and nuance of relationship skills within the education protocol. And like anything else, learning to type, learning to drive, learning to speak Japanese if you speak English, like everything else, it requires a formal protocol in order to help an individual navigate and distinguish specific relationship skills. How do you take a potential probability field with a person and turn it into a peak experience, into something that is sustainable, mutually valuable? So there's a couple of things along the way. One of them is boundaries. What are your boundaries? And these are the boundaries that keep you safe, that keep you secure, that help you feel loved, respected, and a sense of belonging, that give you a sense of self-esteem. If you hang me upside down and pour shit and urine all over me, I don't have a sense that I'm a valuable person. I don't have a sense that I'm safe. So there's a boundary. You don't get to do that. If you interrupt me right at the point where I'm trying to communicate a very sensitive feeling in order to say, oh yes, you remembered you needed to buy some milk, cut it out. I don't feel that you're honoring my most sensitive feelings there if you're interrupting about trivia. It shows you don't have discipline, you're not discerning, you're not a safe person who can track. I'm talking about the grief about the death of my mother. Important. You're talking about milk. Urgent, but not important. And not urgent right now. Show a little bit of control. And these boundaries also, and the ability to respect these boundaries, give us a sense of how safe we are with a given person. You had the intelligence to know that this was a big deal. You're safer than this person who doesn't have that intelligence. So boundary stating and boundary honoring are, of course, one basic skill. This begins with, of course, a technology of learning. What kind of culture do we want as a community, as individuals? It also, of course, is integrated into the lifestyle, because if you have no time to listen to feelings because you're working 10-hour days, then you have no time. You have no time to, deal with what someone's boundaries might be. And because you don't know what someone's boundaries might be, you're likely to violate them. Because you're likely to violate them, the trust goes down, the intimacy goes down, the culture fragments. So boundaries. Requests. Now, these can be requests for boundaries, but also requests for value, requests for comfort. In other words, the technology of evoking the very best side in another human being, the technology of doing that is consistent with the technology of bringing out or of making requests that educate us and allow us to bring out the best in someone. And so these are things like, could you not touch my neck, but massage me right here, and then I'll be more present for you? Could you cook me a food that brings out the energy in my body? Because if you'll cook that type of food, I'll have lots of energy to be present and engage and do good stuff with you. So this is a technology of requests. Another technology is a technology of intimacy, intimacy, of issues that relate to the continuum of the relationship. So, for example, sensitivity is a key skill or talent in a healthy culture, because brain scans show that certain people are more sensitive than other people neurologically, biologically. Meaning that if I go like that, one person is going to be a little bit more stunned than the other because they're more sensitive, which does not mean they're more polite. It means they're more reactive. You know, if you're a squirrel, you're very reactive. So a little thing, they're constantly. So a squirrel is more sensitive than a bear. You go like that to a bear, and the bear just looks at you. Go like that to a squirrel. Squirrels, what's going on? And so responsiveness, this is a key differential within every human being. How sensitive are you to what? When a culture teaches that, provides a safe, healthy, conscious place for people to articulate that, you have a healthier community because you turn the volume down to someone who has, pain when it's that loud. You turn the volume up for someone who doesn't get excited until it gets that loud. You mediate it in the middle when you're creating group space, but you're doing it consciously. You're bridging, the gaps of the people who are present, and you're doing it with respect in a way that you help the other person see that you know. Because so much of being able to endure the inevitable and regular discomforts of an individual is knowing that someone knows them. I know you don't like doing this. I'm sorry you have to do it. This must be hell for you, and I honor your sacrifice. I honor your sacrifice. You value our relationship. You value our community. You value our culture enough to consciously sacrifice this opportunity, this pleasure. This is one of the aspects that deepens a marriage. I know you want to fuck that woman. I know she wants to fuck you. I know it would be wonderful. And you know it too. And you chose not to. Because you put our child's dignity in the community. You put my dignity in the community. You put my feelings. You put this marriage and the future that we're building together ahead of something that would have been easy and felt great for a short time. You made a sacrifice. And I honor you. I know what that's about. And this is one of the reasons that honesty is so important. Honesty in all areas. In other words, you cannot be seen. You cannot have intimacy. And thus you cannot be respected. To look and look again. Respect. You cannot be seen without a sense of truth. You have to see what it's like for the other person. You don't necessarily have a sense of my sacrifice unless you know that my tongue is a little dry, my neck is a little sore, I woke up with a little bit of a headache, my leg's been going to sleep off and on depending on its angle. I've left the heat off because it interacts with the sound. And this may sound like, a pity story. And it could be that if I was forced to do this. But I get paid hundreds of dollars an hour as a contractor. I don't get paid a dime for this. So you could say that's a sacrifice as well. But this is where I want to be. In other words, I've got no whip. No one's waiting. No one's going to judge me if I don't make a series of videos like this. No one's going to ever know that they could have been made or that I thought about it. No. There's a sacrifice to bring this to life. And I'm excited because there's nothing that I'd rather be doing. Watching a movie, drinking something, playing video. There's nothing I'd rather be doing because I understand how critical this is for the evolution of our species. that we learn the art of transforming cultures into something exceptional. So I'm deeply honored to be having the opportunity to explore this. Right now it's with a phone. I'm exploring this with a phone. I'm exploring it with myself, but one day it's going to be with you. And I'm honored. There's nowhere I'd rather be. But you have to know me in order to understand that sacrifice. And when sacrifices are honored, thank you. Thank you for seeing something bigger, for going above the mundane, for caring about a country or a species. That's when that impulse has courage. That's when it grows. When our children make a sacrifice and they are loved, they grow up wanting to make a big difference, knowing that they can. And so there is a technology in relationship skills of intimacy, and there is a technology of honoring. Honoring every single emotion and its source and its correlation with the source. It's not just some mysterious thing that you feel depressed. You watched 2 horror movies, watched your president lie multiple times, watch that be covered up, watch good guys go to jail and this, not. Heard about this person feeling miserable and nobody doing anything about it. Been asked how you're doing 5 times and nobody wanted to know. I feel depressed. I wonder why. There's a correlation. And so as a community, when we own that correlation and say, what can we do as a community to raise the statistical probability of joy? That's not your job. That's our job as a community. Now, your job is within that environment as best as possible to better yourself, to create and become a better person. But our job is of the community, meaning it's if we want a community in which 20% of the people are not depressed, first it has to be measured. Then the trend has to be trajected. Then we have to correlate it with causal factors. And we have to change those causal factors as a community till it gets down to less than 1%. And then we look at what remains. Okay. People in our community get very depressed for up to months at a time after someone dies that is their partner. We're not going to get rid of fabulous love that is so beautiful that people miss it for months. That's a success. Nothing wrong with that depression, but we're going to love the hell out of you while you're in it. You're not going to be alone in that loss and that grief. We'll be there with you. So that's a good depression, the loss of a love that's valuable enough to grieve deeply. A shitty depression, being too cowardly to leave a job that you hate, trashing your body with amphetamines to get to the job that you hate, and knowing you don't really have an end game. And so you hate yourself, you hate your job. There's nothing you'd sacrifice anything for. You feel like a rat because you've been reduced down to the reptilian brain stem and basic survival instincts, and that's all your life is. Well, by all means, feel depressed and disgusted, but also seek out a culture and a community where that would matter to someone, to stand up and fight for your dignity so that you have a chance to be a human being and move from there into a spiritual being. We have the basic level of self-love to care about that, to make you matter. Is that worth fighting for? You see, this is a skill to see and honor that. We're talking about honoring all of you, the magnificent potential in you that is being ground up into video games and potato chips as the end game. You know, enjoy the potato chips, enjoy the game, but you're worth more than that. There's something in you that's, it's like, I got to 3,864 and then I died. You're worth more than that. But do you have a community that is emotionally literate and relationally literate enough to know that? To celebrate the success in the game and say, hey, let's get out in the real world and start playing. Let's start seeing how many people in a month you can bring joy to. How many people in a month you can create peak experiences with. And let's get your score there, and let's have a competition with other people in the community. We get off our ass and create a new culture that's worth living in. You see, this is fun. Relationship literacy is a series of specific skills that we're not only not taught, we're actually antagonized for alluding to, because in a sociopathic, chauvinistic culture, it's not normal for people to consciously build culture and relationship skills. But in a healthy culture, what on earth would you be doing with your time?